Vavahai Tejasvinavadidamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gently open your eyes. Namah Shivaya. Welcome to meditation. Again today. Today I wanted to talk about the idea of how animal herding cultures, animal husbandry, the enslavement and domestication of animals is actually quite closely connected to the abuse of human rights, the enslavement of children, the enslavement of women, the enslavement of other humans, the idea of seeing devaluing other human life over some human life, and for us it seems like it's a very far stretch. We don't really tie together these two things, like the domestication and the abuse of animals, and the enslavement and abuse of humans. We never see how those are interconnected. And Will Tuttle's book, The World Peace Diet, he actually really goes deep into this connection of animal and the domestication of animals, and how that leads to first a subjugation of women and children, and then into the enslavement of other people. And he in his book he cites several very well-renowned anthropologists who point to the fact that within what we would say is the Near East, when the first thing that was domesticated was sheep, and after sheep became domesticated and it became a herding culture, that we see very quickly that that the idea of animals and spiritual rituals, they become less powerful. They become, we start to see human form rise before animal forms, and then we start to see this enslavement of women and children, and then within warfare we see the enslavement of other humans. And so he points to the fact that if we want to live in a world of that all are recognized equally and all have equal rights, that we have to kind of liberate animals. But first, before we can even start to really think about how we can liberate other humans. And his book had a profound effect on me in the way that I think about human rights and the rights of people who don't have power. The other day, and I'm bringing this up because something happened in politics and the American dialogue that it really showed how close these two issues are intertwined. This idea of enslavement of animals for food, and the idea that human life has little or no value. Of course, during this time of the virus, we're seeing that the virus is spreading throughout the slaughterhouses in the meat packing industry. And I mean, just think about it. You have cool temperatures, you have animals being killed, you have people touching, and it's like a lot of wet environment, blood and body fluids. And so it's a place that the virus is spreading quickly. In Wisconsin, the idea of whether people had to go back to work or not go back to work and what rights they had has come up. I'm not sure about the case, but the head of the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, and I want to make sure that I have her name correct. Her last name is Rajansak. And so Judge Rajansak made a statement saying, well, these people who are concerned about their health, who don't want to go back to work, who are questioning the company, they're not quote unquote regular folk. Quote unquote regular folk. So she referred to them as somebody who's outside of somebody who deserves the protection of the law or has a right to question authority. She referred to them as others. She saw them as outsiders. And it's very interesting that this is playing out within the context of the meatpacking industry, the slaughterhouses. Within the slaughterhouse, you're seeing the animal as the other, as the commodity, as the thing that is to be killed, gutted, cut up, packaged, and sent out. And at the same time, when we think about the history of American slaughterhouses, there's always been great controversy about how workers who work those in that industry are actually treated. You can go back through American history and you can find quote after quote after quote from people who talk about the brutality of the slaughterhouse, how that the slaughterhouse creates people who are desensitized to death and pain and suffering, and the real underbelly of a class system of people who work in those slaughterhouses. So the judge actually, kind of brought this to light in the court system and in social media by making the statement that those people working there are not regular folk. Now, let's be honest. Today, in it's not 1924, when the slaughterhouses were filled with Irishmen and people from Europe working those slaughterhouses. Today, the slaughterhouses of America are filled with migrant workers, undocumented workers, and people of color. There are also a lot of women who work in it and men, but they're mostly people who are brown or black. They are not white people. So a white, judge has then made this statement about they're not regular folk. So she's discriminating on class, she's discriminating on race, economic structure, probably educational structure, and just like the animal that's going there to be slaughtered, she's seeing it as the other, something that has no rights, that has no feelings, that has no, and who cares if a cow is fearful if it's going to the slaughterhouse? Who cares if your undocumented worker is going into the slaughterhouse to work and is fearful? They're not important. They have no value. One of the great hopes I had when this quarantine started was that I felt like there could be positive things that could be brought out of this. that we would wake up to certain habitual habits that we continue to have and support. And this was one of those things that I was hoping that would come out of the darkness into the light so that we could really look at it. Like, how are animals being treated as food, and what effect does that have on human health, considering that swine flu, bird flu, all kinds of disease come from animal husbandry and the domestication of animals for food, the overpopulation of putting them into one area and the human contact. And then, how does that treatment of animals connect to the treatment of humans within human society, devaluing people of color, devaluing people because of gender, because of religion, because of sexuality, because of economic situations, educational situations, that we kind of then take those people and we kind of slot them on the same parallel as we do domesticated animals. They're only good for that purpose of servicing in a semi-slavery, indentured servant role. And then beyond that, they don't have a right because they're not regular folk. Many people would say that yoga shouldn't be political. I say this all the time. There is absolutely no truth in that. That is people who want yoga just to become a fitness class. They just want to go and move. That's fine, but don't call it yoga. The foundation of yoga, as seen through the teachings of Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, is that Krishna gives these teachings of yoga to Arjuna because of politics, because of the political situation the country is in, the state is in, the kingship is in, that you're in the middle of a war, and the war is real. It's families, two cousins, fighting over who will control, and the idea that Krishna is supporting dharma, our righteousness, so that others can live happy and free. When Arjuna on the battlefield, he says, I don't want to really take on the mantle of killing my family, on killing my teachers and killing my friends and more. Krishna says to him, and I'm paraphrasing, he says, if you don't, think of all the suffering that will cause. Your cousins are corrupt. It's a corrupt system in place. Your job is to be concerned about all of those non-regular folk out there that you serve. So the teachings of yoga in its core is political. That there is no reason to practice yoga unless you're going to take these teachings and then move forward into servicing others in a way that uplifts their lives, which is dharma, doing dharma. So when we are confronted with these things as they're happening in real time, it's really important that the community of yogis, of sadhus, actually speak up in social media and question those that are in authority on devaluing life, on devaluing others' suffering, of devaluing others' fear, of devaluing the sense that they have should have the same voice in the judicial system and the political arena that everybody else has. Um, Animals' lives should not be disposable, neither should human life be seen as disposal. So we have to take a moment and point that out. Say something, let that be heard. And we will start to become conscious of this connection between animal suffering and human suffering. That that there is a parallel, like a train track between the uh, abuse of a milk cow who is forced to be impregnated, of having her children taken away, sometimes murdered and stuffed, and having a dummy cow by her so that she will produce milk, and then having the milk stolen. And that runs parallel to the sexual abuse of women. Um, the using women as objects of sexuality. They're running parallel. Um, and these are tough. These are very tough issues to talk about. They're very tough ideas to really kind of bring into consciousness, because we really don't want to believe that there is a correlation between those two things. We want to say that human life is somehow different from animal life. Our human suffering is different from animal suffering. They're intertwined. They're closely connected. And as we go through this getting back to normal, we're going to see the industries that abuse animals, that also abuse humans. We're going to see how those that are in power feel about those that are actually on the workforce of those slaughterhouses and meat industry companies. We'll see that both lives are devalued. They're seen as disposable. No matter when we start to react to this, we have to react in a way where we're we're in control. It's not going to do anybody any good to scream and yell and call people names, and so we have to kind of do it in a way that we point out the problem, but at the same time we do it in a way where we can intellectually talk about it and discuss it, and get other people to see that, to get other people to see where the problem lies. So the meditation practice helps in that. It helps to allow you to come to the table and have a dialogue with a calm mind. And that is very helpful when we're dealing with these really difficult issues that most people don't want to acknowledge and they don't want to talk about. And they can be highly, highly, highly emotional. Just taking a moment and setting up so that your spine is elongated, your shoulders are over the hips, the head is on top of the shoulders. The palms can face up or down, whatever's comfortable. The dominant hand can lay in the submissive hand if that's comfortable to you. And then close the eyes. And allow the mind to calm. And bring the senses inward. Allow the breath to deepen. Deep, full inhales and deep, full exhales. Inhale deeply. Exhale deeply. As you inhale, hear the sound of Om within yourself. As you exhale, hear the sound of Om within yourself. Inhale, Om. Om. Exhaling Om. Om. Inhaling Om. Exhaling Om. As you inhale the sound of Om, see the symbol of Om within your mind's eye. As you exhale the sound of Om, see the symbol of Om within the mind's eye. Inhaling the sound of Om as you see the symbol of Om. Exhaling the sound of Om as you see the symbol of Om. Continue that on your own. As thoughts arise, try not to attach yourself to the thought. Continue to focus on the symbol of Om and hear the sound of Om within yourself. Continue to inhale the sound of Om. And exhale the sound of Om. Inhale deeply. Exhale fully. Silently tell yourself, I am not this body. Silently tell yourself, I am not this mind. Silently tell yourself, I am not these thoughts. Silently tell yourself, I am not these emotions. Tell yourself you are infinity, everlasting, eternal. Inhale deeply for the sound of Om. Bringing the hands together, rubbing the hands together, building heat within the hands. And bring the hands over the eyes, cup the hands with the eyes. Gently let the heat from the hands be absorbed into the eyes, then slowly open the eyes. Bring the hands across the forehead, the top of the head, the back of the head, the nape of the neck. Bringing the hands together, bowing the head slightly to let the forehead touch the thumbs. Giving thanks and praise for the teachings of yoga from the past, the present, and those that are still yet to be revealed. Om Bolo Sadguru Bhagavan Ki Jai. Here again, if you're interested in learning more about these ideas I talked about today, the World Peace Diet by Will Tuttle. He explains a lot of this. He also has a lot of great points you in the directions to start to understand more about the development, that relationship between animal husbandry and herding cultures and our subjugation of other humans. Beloved.